Hey guys, it's Nanomachines, and we're taking a look at the Transformers trading card game once more with a deck profile. And this time I'm going to be showing off a proxied list for the Predacons, which I have recently been playing with. And honestly, Predacons, if every combiner is like the Predacons in terms of viability, then I'm a happy man. I mean, I'm going to be very honest with you here. The Predacons are startlingly good. Like, I definitely think they are a viable deck in the long run. Now, you might be looking at the composite parts and you might be thinking, wow, that's some really low stats. I mean, Razor Claw starts off with an attack of 2. I mean, like, Headstrong over here with an attack of 1. Honestly, their stats don't seem that good up when they start with. When they transform, sure, most of them have an average of 3. But the deck has a massive amount of weapons that just exist within the list that will consistently boost your attack to, frankly, somewhat ludicrous numbers for even while considering you're a 5-star army, essentially. So, how would you play the Predacons? And I think I can best describe that as something akin to a mix between Dinobots and Insecticons. Your Predacons have, frankly, abysmal levels of defense, and pretty much your general strategy is transform and attack. And that's your general thing. You got to get them and their value before they die. Because if you play any defensive cards, other than like maybe Force Field, you're probably not going to do well that game because your attack stats are too low to have anything else benefit them. Now, going through the characters one by one, I think it's probably best to start off with one of the most important characters in this entire build, and that is Headstrong. Now, Headstrong might be one of the most important, even though he's one of the weakest, for one simple reason, and that is he has Brave built in his starting alternate mode. Now, if you know what Brave does, Brave is essentially saying that you have to attack the Transformer with Brave before anybody else. And on turn 1, your opponent could target down Razor Claw and just wipe him off the face of the earth. But instead, they have to target Headstrong, because Headstrong has Brave. And that makes me extremely happy, because Razor Claw is just that good. Because, not only does he have Bold in his vehicle mode, well, his Lion mode to be more specific, but in Robot mode, he pairs his average attack with the ability to attack untapped characters. And especially against the Bug matchup, you're going to be using Razor Claw to knock out potentially their only untapped character near the end of the game. And that just opens up a whole slew of things you can do against them. Now, as for Headstrong, again, he doesn't have that much offensive punch. He doesn't have really that much at all. I mean, the guy only has, what? Well, he has 3 attack, but he's not going to be doing anything. He doesn't have an ability. He's just kind of there. Past turn 1, he's not that important. But the effects that he has in the game is undeniable. Speaking of, Torox, or how I like to call him, Clorox, has a lot of really good utility. Now, Clorox has in his alternate mode the ability that states that your opponent's characters cannot be repaired. Now, that's really good against things like, well, I don't know, Dinobots, who really likes healing off all of his characters. And Torox prevents that. Completely prevents that. Very, very good effect for something that's just 5 stars. Now, Torox also has fantastic utility in his Robot mode. Now, with his Robot mode, when you flip to it, he draws a card, and then you get to plan 1. Now, generally, even if you don't attack Torox, when you transform him, he can still use that planning effect to, for instance, use, I don't know, say Rampage a little bit better, or make perhaps Razor Claws attack better. That planning effect is fantastic, and Torox is another one of the more important parts of the list. Now, unfortunately, Rampage comes in at a lesser importance. I find myself attacking with his Pierce 2 in his vehicle mode just to put a little bit of damage on Shrapnel before they get to, you know, tap one of their characters. And that's fine. It's fine. But his robot mode is unfortunately a little lackluster. His robot mode has the ability that prevents too much spread, I would say, because it heals off 1 damage from each of your Predacons when an enemy character is KO'd. And whereas that seems good, because like, oh wow, all 5 of your characters will be on the field and then they get healed off when they kill somebody, finally, that's great. Unfortunately, in the playstyle that they're meant to be played, you transform a Predacon, and then you attack with them, and then they die. That's just kind of just how things go. Even Torox has 0 defense. Dive Bomb in his robot mode has 0 defense. Razor Claw has 1 defense in both modes, like they're just not going to take a lot of hits. And Rampage, at that point, will not be healing anything. So whereas he does have a little bit of utility sometimes, I find that's generally just better to just swing with him and just let him die. Honestly, both of these guys kind of fit that bill. Now, someone who doesn't is Dive Bomb. Dive Bomb has a very interesting effect. First off, he starts off with vanilla. Doesn't really matter. You're only going to be attacking with him in his robot mode. Dive Bomb is the only specialist in the list, and that means he can take advantage of excellent cards like Field Communicator to speed up your upgrades. Like, he really accelerates a lot about your list, and if you have a bad hand, Field Communicator essentially turns into 1 less card in your deck you have to worry about drawing into, because you can just attach it, flip another card, and attach it. It's a very good card, and Dive Bomb allows you to play it, but personally, Dive Bomb is fantastic with that. I really, really like Field Communicator. Now, that's not the only part about Dive Bomb that makes him actually pretty okay. He also has the effect that once you flip to that robot mode, your opponent reveals a random card from their hand, and then if it's an action, they can just scrap it. And that's very good if your opponent has like 1 card left in hand. Oftentimes, combiners will go down to 1 card, and it's going to be their Enigma, because they don't want to burn that Enigma. So, you can just transform Dive Bomb, force them to discard it, and suddenly there's not going to combine that game. And that is a very good effect. Now, it won't always come up. In fact, it mostly won't. But having the effect is better than not having the effect, if you ask me, personally. Now, they combine into Predaking. Now, Predaking is kind of huge. He has 37 HP and 7 base attack. And you would say that's kind of low, considering you just waited all game to get that guy on the field. But when you consider that he has 5 weapon slots, you have to realize that you're going to be doing a ton of damage when you combine to him. It combines if you have, say for instance, 2 characters on the field with weapons on them. It can take both of those weapons and attach it to him. It's fantastic. And when you combine to Predaking, you'll notice that it has an effect. Draw a card and then play a card. That is fantastic, because not only would you be able to draw a card and then potentially play another upgrade, but it also allows you to potentially draw into another action to get you even more upgrades. It's that kind of upgrade stacking that Predaking excels at. And even though you won't be really attacking with him more than once, Predaking can do a snotload of damage out of nowhere. Now, speaking of all of the cards in your deck, you play an inordinate amount of upgrades. In fact, you only play roughly 15-ish, perhaps a little less, actions. And most of your actions actually do things with upgrades. In fact, Swindled draws 2, scraps 2, and then plays an upgrade. Scrounge looks at the top card of your deck. If it's an upgrade, you get to play it. Treasure Hunt grabs upgrades out of your deck. Almost all of them involve playing more upgrades. And at 14 cards out of your deck being actions, Scrounge is almost always going to hit. And Treasure Hunt is almost always going to net you around 3 cards in your hand. In fact, the Predacon Enigma, once you've combined into Predaking, gets to play an extra upgrade. Everything in your deck, other than Peace Through Tyranny, allows you to play more upgrades in terms of actions. You don't even play Rapid Conversion, because you don't need it. You really don't need to get ahead on the transformation game. You just kind of need to transform, attack, transform, attack, transform, attack, and at the end of the game, you just combine to Predaking, and hopefully have a billion upgrades on them, and then just kill your opponent's guys before they can even retaliate. All of the weapons in this deck do a ton of damage, and amplify all of those low stats to something quite tangible. Now, as a quick note on Peace Through Tyranny, you actually can't play that card, but you can have it in your hand for things like planning effects, like, for instance, Mining Pick, Torox's effect. It's okay to have in your hand. You won't ever use it, but it's okay. It also makes for good scrapping fodder for the Swindled and things like it. But it's not the end of the world if you do happen to draw into them. But speaking of the things that you do want to draw into, we have a legion of weapons. And if you notice, I haven't shown a single blue card yet either. Almost all of these will net you at least 2 other damage, because there are no blue pips in the deck. There's only blues, 2 green cards being the Predacon Enigmas, and then whites. You're just going to be burning through your deck and doing a potential massive amount of damage just by sheer number of your deck, amplified by your weapons. For instance, Flamethrower has Bold 2, and you just flip more orange pips. But Mining Pick is a little bit more interesting, because it has Plan 2. Remember those planning effects I was talking about? You can put those Peace Through Tyranny you dead drew into on top of your deck, and suddenly you're doing 3 damage with Plan 2, and then you're doing the top 2 of cards of your deck being 2 double orange. That makes +7 damage on one of your characters. That is a ton of damage. Mining Pick is fantastic at that. Now, your hand is going to be smaller unless you hit a few treasure hunts. Your hand's going to be smaller, so Mining Pick is at a lesser degree than Flamethrower is, or Erratic Lightning. But being perfectly honest with you, if you could find the space, I would definitely play a third one. It's just good to have. It's just a great card. Now, as a note on Erratic Lightning decreases your defense stat. Now, decreasing your defense stat is actually okay, considering the fact that almost all of your characters have 1 or 0 defense in the first place. I mean, Dive Bomb has 0, Torox has 0, everyone else has like 1 other than Headstrong. Like, frankly, Erratic Lightning, don't even need to consider looking at this. It's just +3. You don't even need to remember it on occasion. But Erratic Lightning is basically just a grenade launcher. It really is. It's just essentially playing 6 grenade launchers, and I love the card a lot. It is a fantastic, fantastic card. And of course, Grenade Launcher is one of those cards you just play a maximum of just because it's strong. It's like there's no better weapon than Grenade Launcher, to be perfectly clear with you. Now, since you play so many weapons, you do play some other upgrades, for instance, your utilities. And some of those utilities do facilitate that weapon growth. For instance, Tooth and Claw and Field Communicator. Tooth and Claw is a new card coming out of Wave 2 that is a Predacon exclusive weapon. Well, a Predacon exclusive upgrade, one could say. It's not really utility so much as it is just kind of an effect. I mean, utilities are usually like more powerful than Tooth and Claw, but Tooth and Claw has some merit in this deck because of all of the extra upgrades you get to play. For instance, say one turn you start powering up Razor Claw. You just attach a weapon to it, and you attack with somebody else. Next turn, you have a Scrounge in your hand, and you say, oh, let me go and play this Scrounge. And then you see, hey, wait a minute, there's a Tooth and Claw. Well, I can attach that Tooth and Claw to Razor Claw here, and attach a second grenade launcher to Razor Claw. And then suddenly, you have 12 damage on Razor Claw swinging out of nowhere, and then you swing at him, and you flip a bunch of orange pips. You just one-shot something. Tooth and Claw enables these random, just out-of-nowhere plays that Predacons are kind of known for. I mean, like, not even untapped characters are safe against Predacons, and I just absolutely adore that playstyle. Now, Tooth and Claw, again, is not that great of a card just to play on your turn. You just don't really want to play it on a guy unless you have to. It's just kind of a feels bad sometimes. Like, you just much rather attach it in Erratic Lightning, a Flamethrower, a Grenade Launcher. Like, you have so many other weapons, and if you don't have one to attach, then, well, I pity you. It's more of a product of all of the extra upgrades you get to play through Swindled and Scrounge and all that stuff than a basis for a deck, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, Field Communicator, however, is kind of one of those neutral cards that you can just play in anything. Field Communicator is utterly fantastic. I love this card. It plays free cards. Now, sure, you don't get to choose what card that is you get to play, but you don't have to have it in your hand either. You get to just look at the top card of your deck and say, I like this. Let me go ahead and play it. You get to play, oh, cool, there's a data bank that I wouldn't normally be able to play. Or, oh, wow, I can't believe I almost discarded this grenade launcher in my attack. Field Communicator is fantastic at that. I absolutely adore Field Communicator. I actually like it better than Multi-Mission Gear, to be perfectly honest with you. I think Field Communicator is just that good. Like, I honestly love Field Communicator. I mean, you often find that these extra action, upgrade effects happen when you have that card in your hand. Field Communicator doesn't have to have in your hand what you're about to play. It's off the top of your deck. And that's very good. That is very good. Now, granted, you could have effects like Torox, where you can put a certain card on top of your deck, and then rig what you're going to use with Field Communicator. For instance, you could put a second grenade launcher, or something like that, or like, you get the picture. Like something you want to play, but you can't. Another action, perhaps. You could rig stuff like that, but honestly, I kind of like seeing more cards out of my deck. Now, speaking of seeing more cards out of your deck, you do play 3 copies of Databank. Now, Databank, it's a bit up in the air on whether or not that card's actually that great, but I think in this list, where you play so many extra upgrades per turn, Databank has a lot of merit because you're going to be able to play it. I mean, Databank and other lists really imply you're not going to be able to play them past turn 1. In this case, I think you will, and I actually have to great positive effect. I really do think that Databank belongs in this list at maximum number, which it is. Now, for the final 6 cards in this list, you'll be saying, oh wow, the armor! I wonder what armor he plays in this all-orange deck. Oh look, it's the double orange pip. Oh look, it's Force Field. Was anyone really doubting what armor I was going to be playing? Let's be honest here. So, Force Field I absolutely adore in Predacons. Actually, in any combiner list. Not only because it allows you to potentially save certain characters from being completely overrun by things like Dinobots, but also it prevents Predaking from being potentially one-shot himself. I mean, you're going to have around 27 damage on the thing when you finally combine. You may as well have a Force Field on him to withstand whatever attack he's going to take. being able to attack multiple times with Predaking wins you the game. Like, hands down. If you attack multiple times with Predaking, I would be extremely surprised if your opponent is still standing after you do that. So Force Field really does allow you to have a lot more leeway during the game, and I couldn't see this list without it, especially with all the extra upgrades you get to play. Thank you very much for watching my deck profile on the Predacons. I very much enjoy this deck, and I really do think that this has a place in the meta. Perhaps even replacing Insecticons, but that's just theory crafting at the moment. I really do believe that these Predacons have massive potential to have a spot in the metagame. Much like I think the same about Menasor, as much as I think about the Sentinels as well. I think that they all have a place in the metagame, and I think that the Predacons will probably be one of the premier combiners to beat in many different regards. Now, as for me, I'm going to be continuing to playtest this next wave, and I always look forward to seeing your comments on the matter. So please, if you have any comments about this deck, please leave them in the comments section below. And if you really like this video, please hit that like button, and if you really liked it, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon in case you want to be notified when my videos go live. Now, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.